This is the 20th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk fishing. And we have a good one today. I've been mulling over this topic of discussion probably for the past 6 months. And it finally dawned. I said, we're going to do it. We're just going to do it. And when I first got into this game, covering this stuff as an intern for Mark Jeffries, I remember you'd sit around and you'd have like anglers mixed in, and you'd have like an outdoor rider, and you'd be at a media event and they say, well, who's the best flipper out there? It's Denny Brower. Oh, but I watched Biffle in 97 break down a row of bushes, and there is no one who could break down a row of bushes like Biffle. And then they go, oh yeah, well, remember in 98, that flipping tube? Denny Brower on High Rock Lake introduced the flipper. He's got to be the best flipper. And then, you get into the mid 2000s and the debate was the best offshore structure guy. Well, did you see Timmy Horton on Champlain, how he broke that down? He was eating pizza by 10 a.m. And they say, yeah, but look what Kevin Van Dam did on Kentucky Lake. He didn't even go to his best offshore stuff until 2 p.m. so no one would see. So it dawned on me right now, we're in a completely new era of bass fishing. We got guys that are winning at an unprecedented rate. The consistency is through the roof, and there's no doubt about it that forward-facing sonar has spawned an entirely new genre of tournament bass fishing competitors at the top level. So I got three of the best guys in the industry, one from MLF, one from Bass, and one who fishes at the very top level. We're going to bring them in. We're going to put together a criteria for what we all think makes a good Livescoper, a good forward-facing sonar user, regardless of whether it's an active target, a Garmin, or a Humminbird. And then we're all going to piece it together from all the different. We're going to take into account the invitationals. We're going to take into account the opens, the BPT, the Bassmaster Elite Series, throw in some NPFL, or if there's an outlier from a Toyota series or something like that, and we're going to come up with the top 10 list of scopers, and then we're going to let everybody debate about it. So first one that I'll bring in is the guy who's been doing it the longest, a friend of BTL. I always enjoy our time together, and it was hard to catch him when he was actually in the United States. Pete Robbins, since 2007, 2008, covering all things on the bass, also freelancing for a ton of different fishing tournaments, organizations, and Hannah's in it too. So I'm going to say co-owner of Half Past First Cast, which, if you listen to BTL, sends common folks to exotic locations. What's up, Pete?
Nothing much, Matt. It's great to be here, and I'm happy in a discussion about scoping to represent the 50-plus crowd.
Oh, yeah. I never even thought about that, too. You're by far the oldest on this panel.
By far.
Not by far. I am, by the time this airs, I'm 40 now.
Yeah, 40 is not 50, though. 50 is like when you start thinking about retirement, you start thinking about health supplements and things like that, mobility assistance.
That's when you go fishing. You have to remember your scoping spectacles.
I do. Can you see? I'm wearing my glasses. I so want to be cool and not have glasses on. First of all, I'll never be cool. But on top of that, when I take the glasses off, I can't read my notes. So
I don't know. There's been some pretty cool individuals through history that have worn glasses. So.
Okay.
The next one is, dude, this guy probably knows. I put Rob Newell up there maybe, but other than that, there's no one else who knows more history about FLW and MLF at every level, from the TBF through the BPT. The TBF I don't think is even part of MLF anymore, but when he started, and that is the one and only, also a friend of the show, Jody White, who is joining us. I think he's helping his sister move, but he's pulled over safely on the side of the road. And you are representing all things MLF because, dude, you spend a lot of your life talking about and writing about and podcasting about the best in the business.
Well, Matt, thanks for having me on, and happy birthday.
There's Blockett in the background. He's already after you. He called the cops on you already.
He knew it was going down.
All right. The next one is a top 5 angler on the Bass Pro Tour. Also, he's still representing the younger crowd. You can catch him with scope, without scope, coming off of a very, very solid effort, and has won a couple $100,000 over the past year, including, I think, was it Heavy Hitters? Was it Heavy Hitters that you ended up winning? Yeah, that's Alton Jones Jr., and we've seen him do some magical things over the past 4 or 5 years on the BPT. So thank you, Alton Jr., for jumping on BTL and representing the angler side of this.
Anytime. I'm already wondering whose toes I'm going to step on with my list that I'm going to give here.
Okay, so am I completely nuts in doing this, or is there a way? I'll start with you, Jody. Is there a way that you think we can put together a top 10 list of the best scopers going in professional bass fishing right now, or is this just going to turn into a cluster?
I think we can put together a pretty good list of 10 guys who are really, really good at scope, but I think there's probably going to be another 10 to 30 guys who you could maybe put right in that list. I feel like there's probably 5 or 6 guys who will say are very clearly on it. And then there's a big group of really excellent, mostly young anglers who you could put in the discussion.
Pete, you know, the kind of art to this, is that not part of the beauty to this though? Is, you know, the discussion of who's in and who's out and what's important and why it's important. Is it money earnings? Is it how often you use it? Is it a guy who didn't use it who suddenly got good at it? Is it a guy who's only used it his entire career? Like, isn't that part of the beauty of this as someone in the media, to have a topic that there really may not be a quote right answer to?
Yeah, it's a barroom discussion, like who deserves to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame, or which is more important, strikeouts, ERA, things like that. And I think the beauty of it right now is, you were talking in your intro about who are the best flippers ever. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, we had a very limited amount of footage of the likes of Denny Brower and Tommy Biffle.
Very well, good point.
Now, everything these guys do is on camera, and we may still have our prejudices, but you can see how people use things, how often they use them, and really how good they are. We still don't have a complete set of information, but it's certainly much more complete than it was 5 or even 10 years ago.
And Alton, is this something that's talked about like on tour when you're sitting around having a Dr. Pepper? Are guys going, you know who's sneaky good at this, or do you know who is really screwed based on what it is? But, I mean, is this a talk that you guys have where it's like, this guy is, you don't want to tangle with him?
Yeah. We definitely have these conversations all the time. I mean, we're competitors from the start. Doesn't matter what technique we're using. We're always sizing up the fisheries, how we're approaching them, being like, this guy's after every practice, I'm calling anglers. We're talking, this dude's going to beat the brakes off of us this week because it's setting up like this. And so you get a pretty good discussion. And I've talked to several anglers prior to this discussion with you guys of kind of what makes a good scoper, my personal criteria, and then who we put on that list. And it's a really hard list to whittle down. I mean, you asked if it was going to become a cluster, and the tough thing is like scope has grown. It's been around for, I don't know, I've been using it for 6 or 7 years, but it's just exploded. And I mean, dude, there's probably guys at the high school list that none of us have ever heard of that are probably better at it than I am. You know, so it's changing so fast, and kind of like Jody said, I think there's an easy, 4 to 6 guys to put up there, and then after that, there's just this next huge clump of anglers that are really dang good at it and probably deserve an honorable mention. That's where it's going to get a little messy. Is that bottom, like getting near the bottom of the 10.
All right, so here's what I want to do. We'll start. We'll work. At least on my screen, I believe that would be clockwise. So we'll start with Pete, and then go to Jody, and then go to Junior. And I want to start by let's get a baseline for how we're judging this by. You just start throwing names out. It's just an opinion based. So let's kind of go through and say what is important to you when you're judging what makes someone an expert or one of the best in the world at any specific technique. Fair?
Sure.
All right, start us off, Pete, and I'll write this down. Let me see if I can actually pull this up. I got this, 2 screens here, so let me see if I can pull this up in a notepad. 1 second, and then X that out. All right, technology at its finest.
I think my first thing is just you have to have technical capabilities. You have to be comfortable with using technology. I mean, this is the absolute baseline. You have to not be intimidated by it, and you have to sort of push the envelope of what it can do and be aware of what your units can do all the time. That's the very baseline to me.
You're a lawyer. Give me like one word that sums that up.
Technological ability.
There you go. So that's also knowing the ins and out, what it's capable of, not just a guy who like just turns it on and doesn't know like what it does.
Right.
All right.
I think
go ahead.
You have to be able to go all in on it. I mean, I've heard guys saying, like I heard Kyle Patrick talk to me about this, that he knew at Fork he had to go all in on it, and he watched older guys in his area bouncing back and forth and trying different things. You have to know when it's the only deal and it's the main deal and be willing to go completely in on it.
Okay.
You also have to, it can't be the only thing you do. And that kind of goes against my first criterion, but you also have to know when not to use it, to know when to go pick up a flipping stick or to
know when to bail.
Know when to bail.
Mm-hmm. Which shows an understanding of the technology and shows that you're not relying completely on it for your success.
My fourth thing is because, and you guys can dispute this if you think I'm wrong, because almost everyone can do it fairly well now, you have to take it to the next level. You have to be able to use it in situations where it's not expected, whether that's Scott Martin fishing for bedding fish with it, or going to the Show on River, which is a place I've fished a fair amount, and I never expected that would be a key player there, and clearly it was. You have to be able to use that technology when it shouldn't be the dominant paradigm.
All right, before we get all of yours, let's go around and Jody give us a couple, and then we'll give AJ a chance here.
I agree with, I think, pretty much all of those. I think one thing that I want to see is versatility with it. There are some guys who are really good at using Livescope for kind of like 1.5 things, and Drew Gill is really good at using Livescope for 10 things, and I want like all 10 out of the best guys. So I feel like I think that's going to be an area where when we start debating names and stuff like that, like that'll be kind of hard to parse through, because the top guys can use it for almost everything, and then a lot of folks are really good at it for some things, and maybe there's other stuff they're still learning.
Okay, so versatility with the unit, not one-dimensional.
Yeah, I think that's a really big separator between like the truly top level folks and then regular people, basically.
And once everybody kind of has theirs down, we'll go through, because I feel like we can marry that technique with the non-traditional efficiency that Pete just talked about, because non-traditional efficiency will also often lead into versatility with the unit, because someone who's not familiar, who hasn't had thousands of hours of understanding how it works, it would never even cross their mind that you could use it in certain situations. Fair? All right. AJ, hit us with one.
So, number one for me is probably going to be just like success. Like,
okay,
who has won, who's won the most money using the technology. And then, I kind of broke down like versatility into 3 different categories. It's going to, not to dive too deep into it, but like
we're literally, I just point out, this is a show where we dive deep into
deep. So like in the versatility, like what I did with I've got who knows how many names written down, but I wrote in like the best bait scopers. Okay. And I wrote a list of names, and then I wrote the best cover scopers, right? Guys that are really known for like targeting the traditional cover that we've always fished, but using Livescope for that. And then Wrote down a bunch of names. Then bottom fishing / shallow water fishing. That's going to fall into like your bed fishing categories.
Yep.
And then I wrote down those names, and the names that I see pop up on all three of those lists are going to kind of be how I would think to compile my 10. So yeah.
I like that. So under the versatility, I put, so Jody, was that you who I had on the show where we went through like the 6 types of scopers, or was that someone else?
No, it was somebody else, because I wanted to argue the whole time I was listening. So it wasn't me. I loved it, but I was like, oh man, I take issue with this.
Do you remember what it was? It was kind of the same thing that Junior was talking about. Like I had like power. I think one of them was power scoping, which was like just like hitting the fish on the head and getting him to react. One was finesse scoping, which was like eat it, here he comes. Oh, I gave it 2 twitches and he bit it. One was perspective. One was like distance scoping. One was cover and vegetation scoping. Like I think I had like 6 or 7, which obviously were not the ideal topics according to Jody, but
I not personally for me. I think that Alton did a like perfect job on it, because I think like the way you separate like power or finesse or whatever is it's almost better to have it under the thing of bait, because bait is like essentially like mostly an open water thing, right? It's and sometimes you might catch those fish on a jig. Sometimes you might catch them on a 6-inch minnow. Sometimes you might catch them on a 3-inch minnow. Sometimes you might catch them on a jerk bait. And then like the cover stuff is like Brian Thrift was cover scoping with 360 like 10 years ago. And now we've got scope and we can do it so much more precisely and, like just so much better. And then the shallow and the bottom stuff, like I feel like that's the current frontier, right? Like that's where folks are really separating themselves, if you ask me.
The cream rises to the top.
Right.
Are you good with this, Pete? I think I am 100% good with what Jody and Junior came up with, which is the bait, the cover, and the bottom fishing and shallow. It does take my 9 types of scoping and put it into 3 very manageable categories.
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay. Before we did that, tournament success though, wins, top 10 finishes, money earned based on forward-facing sonar. You are a tournament angler. It is how you feed your family and make your living. So it is apropos that you would bring that up. Pete, anything else on your list?
I was just thinking about long-term success. I mean, I can speak more to the bass side than the BPT side, but we have sort of this unfortunately indistinguishable blob of rookies who are all pretty good at it on the bass side. And, if you had talked to me 2 events into the season, I would have said Kyoya Fujita might be one of the best in the world. But we've seen that obviously his success has tailed off a little as the year has gone on. So I want to see at least 2 or 3 years of success, consistent success using this and making it work and not trying to force that square peg into a round hole.
Consistency. I like that. All right, Jody.
Yeah, I'm down with all of that pretty much.
All right, so we have the basic technological ability, understanding what your unit can do, ability to commit or go all in, which I think can also be married with like when to bail. So an understanding of how to utilize it. Is that a fair way to say that, guys?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think so. And
yeah.
And one thing I also have written on my list is like, it's kind of like the star power, I guess, is I have an asterisk next to guys that I see as a pioneer, right? The first guys to do things in certain ways, right? There's one name that I'm sure is coming to all 3 of our minds, or a couple, but like if you were one of the pioneers, you get a couple bonus points there.
Oh, that's an absolute great non-traditional efficiency. Versatile, which can kind of be combined into versatility with the unit, not one-dimensional, which then is broken down into the 3 categories of bait scoping, cover scopers, and bottom fishing or shallow water scopers. Tournament success on the water, dollars earned, top 10s, major tournaments won with it. Long-term success consistently, not just 1 or 2 years of boom and then goes away, but an understanding of being able to build your career around it, and then pioneers of the techniques that have shown today's wave kind of what the possibilities were.
Yeah.
What am I missing,
I like
folks?
it.
Am I missing anything, or is that what we're going with as we kind of dive into?
I think that's a lot of categories to fill holes in, so I'm good with it.
All right. I need to batten down the hatches. We'll prepare for this. Then we'll kind of go in a round robin way. We're going to take a really quick break. And when we come back, we're going to start naming names. Alton Jones Jr., Pete Robbins, Jody White, and myself. The top 10 forward-facing anglers in professional fishing. When we come back, is BTL. We'll be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on Strike King.
Gear that just plain works. Cast after cast after cast. AFTCO. Any fish, any water.
All right, welcome back. BTL talking. What are you going by? I talked to like 5 people on who would be a good angler, and some of them said Alton, some of them said Alton Jr., some of them just said Junior, and some of them said AJ Jr.
Dude, I answered absolutely everything. I've been people that know me and have known me for a long time and know my dad call me Little Alton.
Yeah.
All my friends back home just call me Alton, and then a lot of the guys on tour call me Junior or AJ Jr.
Okay,
so,
I don't know if you
answer
noticed that during the first 23 minutes, that was the most stressful part of the show for me. So I just mixed it up and called you all of them intermittently.
I will not notice. So just wing it. You can call me anything you want.
We're good. So I did not add one to this list, but I would like to add something to the list if our esteemed panel of experts feel like it's but novel baits or lures. To me, there's a big difference of a guy who you're like, oh, well, he's just doing the same thing with the bait, but like, and it kind of goes under a little bit of non-traditional, but like when I see certain anglers using things, I'm like, my God, it never occurred to me to scope with that. And I think that's key, and something that shows a lot of skill and understanding is to use specific baits that not everyone else is using, because it's real easy to see something, get caught on it, and then become a master at it. But if it's not in your brain, you can't use it. So is that a fair category to add to it also? Because that kind of impacts some people that I think are key to the list.
Yeah.
Go ahead. For sure. No, I was just going to say that kind of falls under like the pioneer or the non-traditional.
Yeah. If you're just a minnow flicker, you better be really good in winning everything under the sun to get on this list, I feel like.
Right. I agree. All right. So there we go. We went through the list. We have it. I will make the list of names. We're going to have way more than 10, and then we're going to whittle it down. I will put myself in the top right corner, and we'll just start with Jody. Give us
God.
a and you don't have to go. How do you think we should do this? Do you each have a top 10 list, or do you each just have names? Like, do you have a top 10 list, Jody?
I have names. I have honestly been too busy to craft a perfect top 10.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do.
do.
Watch, you're gonna have 10 names, and I'm gonna put you so that'll go last. Pete, you have a top 10 list?
I have like 7 or 8 on the bass side, and then I was hoping we could stipulate to Wheeler. Does anyone disagree with that? I kind of feel like
Wheeler who?
He's Wheeler who. He's pretty darn good at everything he does. If we can stipulate to that, we could just move on to the next 9. But if people disagree, I'm happy to listen.
So I will say this:
as Wheeler as the number 1.
Oh, are we ranking this 10, or are we just coming up with 10?
Oh no, we're ranking it, Pete.
Oh man,
Yeah, we're ranking.
But what I want to do is
I got Gil number 1.
Listen, everybody is going to give names. Then we're going to have a big list of names. Everything that's on the same list, and then we can argue about where they go. That's the beauty of this, because there is no right or wrong. But I will say this: you're the one who brought up Wheeler, so I had him on the show after he won the Angler of the Year, and I ran this idea past him. And of the top 10, I will say, and he did not know when we were recording this. Not an hour ago, I got a call from Jacob Wheeler, who was very concerned about the legitimacy of this list. And I had to say, Jacob, I got 20 minutes to get something to eat, and I'll call you back. But like,
oh no,
he was all in on this. And there were certain things that he wanted to make sure were very critical in the selection of this list. So no pressure.
I got the same phone call, Matt.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Which I talk to him all the time anyway. But yeah. we definitely discussed the list.
All right, let's start throwing out names, and we'll throw them out until there are no names left, and then we'll see if we can assemble something like that is in agreement, and then we'll start debating. Sound like a fair plan?
Yep.
So this is in no particular order. If you have 10, you can start at your bottom and work your way to the top, because I already know we have disagreement at the top, which I freaking love. Start at the bottom, Pete. Just give us a name at the bottom, and I'll put whose pick it is under their name.
Taku.
Okay. Taku E2. If you want to give you know what? Let's just give a name, and then we can go back and debate. That way we're not here for 7 hours. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Alton.
I'm going to go Justin Hamner. We're going from the working is in no real order. This is kind of working from
no real order, but I'm just going to put a 10 next to it just to make sure that we have it. All right, Jody.
I will go Jake Lawrence.
Good pick.
Yeah.
Wait, are we just picking bass right now, or am I?
You're just.
Can I go anywhere on the board?
You can go anywhere on the board.
All right.
You're gonna go Jake Lawrence, right?
Yes.
You think I should pick or not? Should I just let you guys pick?
You should pick.
You think I should pick?
Yeah, throw a name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will you respect your opinions?
I'm gonna go Scott Martin. Pete.
I'm going to throw in both Johnstons at the same time.
You brought a double Johnston to the show?
I almost did that.
Yeah, you got to pick one, Pete.
I will take Chris. Well, I'll take Corey below Chris, and then Chris slightly above him. So you can just.
So your pick this round is Chris Johnston.
No, my pick is, if I'm going bottom to top, my pick is Corey and then Chris. Even though Corey is the one with the signature win.
I got Corey Johnson at number 9.
Okay.
Alton.
I'm going to go Spencer Sheffield.
Oh. Jody.
I will go Dakota Ebair.
Okay. My 9. I'm going to go Jason Christie. See, I'm valuing things a little bit differently in this right now. This will get really interesting when we get to the discussion phase.
I can see it.
Yeah.
All right, Pete. Number 8 is another Johnston.
Another Johnston. Now Chris.
Yep. Alton.
Give me JT Tompkins.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah. Jody?
That's our first like super youthful guy who kind of violates Pete's rule, I feel like.
Yeah.
Although maybe Jake is the same issue.
I think everybody in some ways is going to violate a rule.
Yeah,
know?
I'm going to violate
We're
my
talking
own
about
rules.
we're talking about consistency and all those different things. You
A
know? So.
lot of violating going on this show. All right, Jody.
Let's see. I'll go Patrick Walters. I think he's a little higher than the bottom of the list, but
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I will go Easton Fothergill.
Mm.
Pete.
Shakurit.
Okay.
Oh, which one? The walleye fisherman or?
Well, I mean the son, but I think part of my rationale is because he comes at it from a different perspective and a different history.
Listen, the panel today between me, Jody, and you, Pete, we are 3 of the 5 people on earth who know how to spell their last names without having to look it up.
Man, I don't know. I don't know.
Try it, Jody. Try it, Jody. I guarantee Pete knows how to say it.
I'm looking at it right now. I've got the standings open. I'm cheating.
Don't look at it. Oh, you look at it. How do you spell?
Yeah,
how do you know how to spell his last name? Alton, give us a shot.
No, I can't. I can't. I mean, I know there's a P and maybe it sounds like there's a Z in there and a K. I don't know. All kinds of stuff.
Przekurat.
Okay, there you go.
Just like that.
I still don't remember it.
Remember when Brandon came on board and everyone was like that Palunic?
Overstreet used to say, he would go, Robbins is that damn Palunatic.
All right. Jay Shakurit for Pete. That means it's to you, Junior.
Okay, so we're trying to rattle. Is it okay if we're saying the same names that have already been
we're
said?
supposed to be saying the same names here.
Okay.
Like this is to get clarity as to who we're all on board with.
Okay, so I'm gonna go another youthful guy, Trey McKinney.
Okay, Jody.
Let's see. To get some more names on the board, I'll add Dustin Connell.
Okay. It is my turn. I will go Patrick Walters. Back up to Pete. 6 selections left.
Hamner.
Okay. Alton.
I'm gonna go Michael Neal.
It's a pros pick right there. Jody.
I'm going to go Alton Jr.
Okay. I'll just get him off the board. I'll just put Wheeler on there. Pete.
Cody Huff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love Cody.
And he breaks my rules. I don't think he has that sort of signature moment, but I have another reason for it.
I think he does. Anyway.
He taught Rick Clun how to do it. That's a signature moment.
That's the reason.
That's pretty good.
If Rick Clun listens to you on a topic, you're just automatically grandfathered in.
He won a major tournament scoping the boat lanes at Toledo Bend. That's a signature moment.
Okay.
Then next week won the Toyota. He won the college and the Toyota like back-to-back weeks. It was epic.
Dude, have you run down the lake at I will get into this when we discuss, but have you run down the lake at Table Rock now? If a tournament's going on, you can't run down the lake. It's like a slalom course because everyone is just haphazardly out in the middle, Cody huffing it. All right, Alton. Did I just turn that into a verb?
I've got Dakota Ebert next on the list.
Oops, hold on. That was your 5th pick.
I already messed up my list, by the way. I've got 11.
That's fine.
So.
That's fine. We'll have additional picks that didn't make the list.
Okay.
It's a podcast. There's no, I mean, I don't, just depends on what you guys have going on. I mean, Jody's on the side of the road, but it's your pick, Jody.
I'll add Drew Gill to the list.
All right, we'll get that one out of the way. All right, it's my turn, I believe. I will go Connell. Okay. Pete.
Christy.
Okay. Alton, your fourth pick.
I've got myself on there. A little cringe, I know.
No, not cringe at all. I told you that at the beginning that it was going to happen. Hey, when you're in an individual sport where you rely on yourself to make your living, damn well better bet on yourself. Jody.
Let's see. I am gonna add. Let's see. I can't pass, can I? I feel like we've said almost every name.
No, you're
that
supposed to
wanna
say them. Yeah, but you have to say them too. That way we're we're like, hey, everybody has whatever.
I'm gonna also say both Johnstons then.
So you're gonna take two picks. So are you gonna? We're gonna go.
I'll take Corey because of the win this year.
Okay. Corey Johnson. I will go Dakota Eber. Pete, you're into your top three. I mean, in a roundabout way.
Sure. Cannell. And I have to preface this by saying I don't follow the BPT as closely as these guys, so my list is going to skew heavily on the bass side, and
that's why we have you on.
It's okay. It's not meant to slight anyone. It just reflects my lack of understanding.
That's legitimately why we have you on.
You're picking the right guys.
I'm so offended.
All right, Alton.
Give me Wheeler.
Okay. Jody is Chris Johnson at 3.
Sure.
Okay. Just to make you feel better, I'll go with Alton Jones Jr. Plus, I mean, like the hundreds of thousands of dollars and versatility have something to do with it too. Pete.
Is this my number 2?
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Okay. Alton.
So this is I think based off my list, this is gonna be number 2, but this is actually number 3 for me because I have 2 above him is Walters.
Okay. Patrick Walters. Jody.
Did I pick Wheeler yet? Do you need me to pick Wheeler?
I mean, if he's in your list, it would probably be helpful.
I'll take Wheeler then.
Okay.
I kind of approach this not as picking. I started trying to pick around people when someone else was like, all right, I won't pick him. I'll pick somebody else. And
yeah. No, I understand this. That's why we're going to have a power hour after this where anybody else that's on your list gets down, and then this will all sort out in the wash. I just wanted to have some semblance before it was just word salad of anglers. Am I doing this okay, Pete? Like, you're the most organized out of us, probably.
It works for me.
Okay, good. I've seen Jody's office. It's very organized, but you have a lot of thought processes going on in there. You have
I don't think
I did swim baits this week, and then I worked on this tournament this week, and then I maybe changed some crankbait hooks for the day.
Yeah, I would not describe it as organized.
It's awesome, though. Okay. It's very cool. All right. I'm at number 2. I don't think I have Drew Gill down yet. All right. Pete.
My number 1 is Walters.
Okay. Alton.
My number 2 is going to be DC.
Okay. You just happen to have 2 2s. That's fine.
Yeah, I told you I listed one too many. I was kind of started the same thing that Jody did, trying to avoid.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do it. I'm just free.
We'll figure.
All right, Jody.
I'll say Easton Fothergill again. We've only said him once so far.
Okay. I mean, it might be a little bit of recency bias, but I got to go Alec Morrison. Was that on your list, Jody, yet? He was.
I haven't said his name. I have him in my notes. Alec is super good at so many things.
Okay. And we'll talk about that then. So, Alton got a bonus pick there. So, who's your number one then?
All right, it's Drew Gill. The only right answer.
I thought it was John Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Randy Block is clear number one.
Yeah. So, what I'm going to do is read the 10 that we each have, and then we'll do a power hour where we'll go around and each name names that were not on our list that should deserve consideration. If there was something I know we got a little bit jumbled up. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
So right now with Pete, we've got, and this is no particular loose order, folks. Taku Itu, Corey Johnson, Chris Johnson, Jay Shakurat, Justin Hamner, Cody Huff, Jason Christie, Dustin Connell, Jacob Wheeler, and Patrick Walters. Alton Jones Jr. has Justin Hamner, Spencer Sheffield, JT Tompkins, Trey McKinney, Michael Neal, Dakota Eber, Alton Jones Jr., Jacob Wheeler, Patrick Walters, Dustin Connell, and Drew Gill. Jody White has Jake Lawrence, Dakota Eber, Patrick Walters, Dustin Connell, Alton Jones Jr., Drew Gill, Chris and Corey Johnson, Jacob Wheeler, and Easton Fothergill. And I have Scott Martin, Jason Christie, Easton Fothergill, Patrick Walters, Jacob Wheeler, Dustin Connell, Dakota Eber, Alton Jones Jr., Drew Gill, and Alec Morrison. All right, who is on that list? Is not on that list that deserves to be discussed during the new business section of this show, Pete? Anybody that you feel has been done a disservice with this list?
No, I think we have more people than we can handle right now. One thing I did want to bring up is, one thing we've historically seen in fishing is that guys were loyal to a particular brand. And obviously there are differences among the brands of electronics out there right now. We've seen a change, some guys giving up their sponsorships to run multiple brands. But I would be interested to know, and this may be way inside baseball, like what percentage of those guys that we just gave, 20 or so guys, run a particular brand or run multiple brands in order to get there? Because I have a feeling certain guys are left off because they're not running the right brand of electronics. I don't know how to put more of a fine point on that.
That's a valid point.
Like we're leaving off active target guys, or we're leaving off Mega Live guys?
I think we're leaving off Mega Live guys.
I think we're leaving
just say it quite frankly.
Yeah,
I mean, hummingbird guys on the list.
Like I think Brandon Palaniuk is obviously one of the world's top 10 best anglers, arguably.
We ain't talking about 10 best anglers. We're talking about the 10 forward-facing sonar.
But I'm going to say he's also fantastic with electronics. But I don't know, is the fact that he runs a certain brand of electronics penalizing him? I haven't discussed that with him to know.
I'm very, very comfortable in not having Brandon Palaniuk on this list. Are you?
I am too. 100%. And I don't know if that's driven by him, by the units he runs, a combination, or neither.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very valid point. All right, Jody, hit me with some names that also need to be on this list for the discussion that are not on there currently.
Let's see. I think that I would maybe throw Paul Marks in there. I'd maybe throw Colby Miller in there, who are like some, they're some younger guys, some maybe a little bit less known guys. I kind of feel like we're not going to find room for them in the top 10, but I would, I'd hate to talk about Livescope without talking a little bit about those guys. And honestly, we talked about them a little bit, or no, you were talking about him with McMillan the other day. Bobby Bakewell is really good at scope in Florida. He had a pretty good shot to win a Toyota this year, throwing like a 13-inch worm or something like that on scope on the Harris chain. Like, he does some pretty cool things. I think we probably can't crack him into this top 10, but he's definitely, I feel like, honestly, he's kind of a bit of a Florida pioneer. And it seems like we kind of are learning a lot of things about Livescope down there.
Okay.
Otherwise, I feel pretty comfortable. Maybe we left off a lot of the Elite Series rookies, which I think is a lot of it is probably due to like all of us not being able to separate each one of them out as well as maybe we could, because it seems
I
like
got
all
a
just
couple.
really good at it.
I got a couple when we get down to the names that weren't in
Yeah,
the word salad top 10. Like I'll just put him on here now. Ben Milliken.
That was he's been doing it a long time too. Not all, not all in tournaments. Like he seems awesome at it.
Yeah, he was going to be someone I mentioned because he's the reason we almost always have a glide bait tied on. And I think if we had this conversation in March, he would have been in a lot of people's top fives.
Yep.
And I know he's had a few struggles this season, but he's kind of pioneered a lot of the big bass tactics that we all use, especially where I live. So.
And was not fishing tournaments and doing the minnow thing in all of his videos where I feel, at least I know I was like, okay, controlled environment, knows where the big fish live, YouTube video, badass at catching giant fish, put him in 8 hours after 3 days of practice and let's see how it happens. And he's like, yeah, no, it's the same thing. I'm just really good at it.
And another name that I have written down that, there were several that y'all mentioned, but one is like Tyler Williams. Like you talk about scoping in ways that nobody else does. The dude catches them on a jig when, everybody else is throwing 6-pound line and a minnow. And that's pretty dang cool. So, he's another one that would be like, he'd definitely be in the conversation, right? I think it'd be hard to crack him into the top 10 right now, but he's definitely outside the box with that.
I would like to add, was that your dog, Pete?
Yeah, he's looking for a treat of some
I was
sort.
making sure it wasn't Hannah.
No.
It's growling at you. There you go. I would like to add, and he doesn't have the signature series win, makes a living doing it. I'd like to throw Emil Wagner on that list. He is incredibly talented, and that I think is just a matter of time. He basically has a last place finish this year and is still in the top 10 or right there, top 15 for the open EQs this year. But you look at what he's done in the spotted bass game and out east and what he's capable of with the electronics, and it's pretty unbelievable. So additional names so far, we have Paul Marks, Colby Miller, Bobby Bakewell, Ben Milliken, Tyler Williams, and Emil Wagner.
What about your boy Luke Palmer? I feel like him catching him on Santee like he has is pretty interesting.
Yeah, we can make the list. He can make the list. There's quite a few of those Oklahoma guys who are like catching them in non-traditional fisheries. If you look around, it's been pretty interesting. I'm gonna add one more opens EQ guy on there just because that's kind of where I fish. I'm gonna put Joey Nania on that list. Made a couple classics with it, won some opens with it. He does that Ned Meeky thing. He's won a very non-traditional way out on Lake Eufaula in Oklahoma, out where everyone was like, hey, look at that guy out bass fishing where the white bass live. Coming in with 20 pounds. And he relies on it a lot. So are we happy with these names that we have on here? And we can start assembling a top 10 based on technological ability to commit and go all in, but knowing when to bail, non-traditional efficiency, novel baits, lures, versatility with your unit based on the 3 tenets of bait scopers, cover scopers, and bottom fishing and shallow. Tournament success, wins money, championships, etc. Long-term success or consistency over the duration since it's been introduced, and then pioneers of the technique. We left anyone off here? We're good with it. All right. We're going to take a 1.5 minute break. And when we come back, we'll start at 10 and we'll end up at 1 and we'll let the discussion begin. It's BTL, the best forward-facing sonar anglers in today's game, with Pete Robbins from Bass, Jody White from MLF, and BPT Pro, Alton Jones Jr. We'll be back right after this.
Yes.
Fishing isn't just a hobby, it's an obsession. Whether it's blazing hot or bitterly cold, bright sunshine, raining, or even snowing, someplace, somewhere, there's a fish that's ready to bite. And as the angler, you need baits that will catch the fish anywhere, anytime, no matter the conditions. From throwing topwaters to cranking the depths, know the baits to throw. Choose Spro.
Denali Fishing has me covered on the Bassmaster Opens, from their line of high-end rods, from the Android series all the way to the TAC series, the Novus series bait casting reels, all the way to the Covert series of tungsten in the cylindrical and the teardrop shapes. Denali has everything to keep me covered, whether I'm finesse fishing for smallmouth on the Great Lakes or flipping for largemouth in the slop down in Florida. The complete lineup is always on my deck and in my boxes.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
All right, welcome back, BTL. We're talking about the top 10 best scopers, forward-facing sonar guys in the game, just like we would if you were a flipper or a cranker or a topwater guy and whatnot. Now, in a perfect world, we'd build the anticipation in number 1, since I know we already have a debate about it. But this is reality, and I want the top 10 in the easiest, cleanest way possible. And the best way to do that is to start at the top and then work down to 10. Right, Pete, Alton, and Jody?
Works for me.
I agree.
All right. So we'll start at number 1. We're going to look at who's got everybody on the list, and unimpacted by other people's decisions. Pete, your number 1, and like I said, this wasn't in specific order at all, but your number 1 was Patrick Walters.
Right.
Alton, your number 1 is?
Drew Gill.
Drew Gill. Jody, your number 1 is?
Drew Gill.
And my number 1 is Drew Gill. Pete, talk to us as to why Patrick Walters should be in consideration for the number 1 scoper in the game, because I think you might have a valid argument here.
I think Patrick was among the first ones to have a signature win with it at Fork. He's won multiple times with it, doing different things from the St. Lawrence to Fork to Murray. He's consistently at the top of his game. He uses it with the glide bait, with the jerk bait, with the minnow, and he's the perfect age. I mean, he's not a 19-year-old guy coming in who can only do that. He would be fine without it. And yet he's not a 50-something-year-old guy like me who's semi-resistant to technology. He's not yet 30 years old, and he already has multiple signature wins with it. And it feels like the best is still ahead of him.
Alton, why Drew Gill over Patrick Walters, and why Drew Gill at your number 1?
Well, Drew Gill's at my number 1, just like the season he's had. I mean, really over the past 2 years, but this year especially, I mean, he's had 2 major wins with it, and he's doing it in unconventional ways. Like I think as you see any game advance, the athletes, like you get into like the LeBron versus the Michael Jordan, and I think athletes always progress. I think the next top guy is almost always better than the predecessor because they learn from them in a way. Like athletes get faster, fishermen get better, you name it. And right now, to me, Drew Gill is he's the scariest angler with that black box, dude. He doesn't miss. He's doing it in ways shallower. I mean, like what he did at Eufaula this year, which wasn't even his win. He finished second in it. The lake was 4 feet high, blown out mud, and the dude's scoping him out of 2 feet of water. The ability to tell what's bass and what's not bass in places where it's very, very difficult, and being able to generate bites is just, I mean, it's incredible. And he's super, super efficient with it. But to Pete's point, I talked about kind of like the star power bucket points, some of the pioneers. That is, not only is Patrick one of the most like feared anglers on the planet right now, but he opened a lot of eyes with what he did on Fork and a lot of other places. But like that Fork event, fishing that standing timber with a jerkbait really just unlocked a whole nother level of fishing for a lot of us. So I can definitely see his pick.
Jody, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think the emphasis on Gill being great is, more important than anyone else being, not as good at him at it. Like, I think Gill is just that incredible.
I'm going Drew Gill number 1 because I've had some conversations with him where I'm like, boy, that wasn't like, that never even crossed my mind. Like that entire train of thought was like never even present in my brain. And he's talking about it like it's just like common matter of fact. And I've also talked to a number of professional anglers who are really good at this and do this for a living. And they're like, yeah, it's real hard to try to work with him because he's on a different plane. Like he's taking things with forward facing sonar just as assumptions that are base knowledge. And it's like high level stuff that we're just getting our hands on. And to him, it's like, well, of course, XYZ because XYZ. And that's why I did this. And then also knowing Eufaula really well, I was like sitting there watching it going, what the hell is he scoping? Like there's nothing there. And you're just like, okay, yeah, that did it for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have any of you guys got to fish with him?
No.
I haven't.
Dude,
have you, Jody?
We shot day 5 at Rayburn this year after he won, and his processing time from like blip on the screen to Nico rig falling down to it is incredible. The speed that he's like, yeah, it's a catfish. Yeah, it's a carp. That might be a bass. Like it's amazing. I mean, it made me want to sell my tackle. Like he is so fast with it. It's remarkable. And like I've seen a lot of guys fish really fast with it. I've watched Spencer Sheffield fish a lot. He's a really fast scoper. And Drew, I really think is like at that level or maybe, beyond it. And this is like his second year fishing pro. It's, he's incredible, man.
Pete, are you cool with Drew Gill at number 1 then?
Yeah, I just don't have enough time watching him to really understand, but these two guys obviously do, so I am fine to stipulate to that. I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here when maybe not in this particular case, but among the rest of the top 10, you could switch 7 and 8 or switch 9 and 6, and you probably wouldn't be losing or gaining a lot.
All right, we'll give you the edge. We'll let you kick it off. I'm assuming number 2 then. If Drew Gill is going to be number 1, you're sticking with Patrick Walters.
I would based on what I've heard.
Okay. Let's switch it up. Jody.
I'm really not mad at Patrick Walters number 2. I feel like he's got like some really good history. He's obviously still really good with the technology. I don't know if like he would like 100% be my number 2 pick, but I feel like he's for sure in my top 5. And honestly,
this is literally a show where you're giving us your number 2 pick. So give us your number 2 pick. If it's controversy, and it doesn't match, I want to get this list. I want this list to be like vetted
we want
out.
This list.
Yeah, as long as everyone's good. If someone has to go, I get it. We're already an hour in. But what's your number 2?
I got all day. I feel like my number 2, I think I'm going to go Wheeler. And it's kind of by a hair. And some of that is because he does so much of it with active target, which is just, it's like very interesting to me that he's made that technology work so well for him. And not because it's bad, but it's just a little bit non-standard. And then some of it is that.
Have you seen the most recent active target, Jody?
Sometimes it's like pretty sweet. I saw it with what's his name? With Keith Carson. And like, it looked pretty good. We saw some big fish. We saw like a muskie.
Yeah.
Is it not good, or what?
That's what I'm saying. No, it's like it's there.
It's good, right?
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Some might say there's certain things it does that is better.
Well, yeah, like there's some things that I think it might do that it's better. So like I don't know. I am.
You're going Jacob Wheeler though.
At 2. Yeah.
Okay. Alton Jr.
I've got DC at number 2 for me. And splitting hairs, like Pete said, between Patrick or Wheeler, all those guys are in my top 5. But the sheer amount of money that's been won on forward-facing sonar, I don't think anybody can hold a candle to DC. He was one of the. I mean, I don't know. He's had to have won $1 million in the last like 3 or 4 years on it.
Yeah.
Between 2 Red Crest wins, 5 BPT wins.
Super
dominant whenever they're on bait. He's really, really hard to beat. And so that's why I give DC my number 2 spot. But like Pete said, splitting hairs there.
Yeah. So I'm going to go DC as well. I know that he's won an Elite Series event like before this stuff was even out there, but it's almost a knock, not a knock, but Wheeler's versatility and ability to go completely off script when he planned on scoping and picking up fish, like in this last one on the St. Lawrence, going up and flipping for largemouth or whatnot. If we're sticking to what this show is, which is the best forward facing sonar guys, I feel like, having watched him over the last 3 or 4 years, more of DC's adjustments are in still using forward facing sonar, but adjusting in how he's using it. Whereas Wheeler will go off script and throw chatterbait in some grass or go flip a couple docks without looking at it. Mm-hmm. DC seems to stay more true to the scoping and just changing how and where he's scoping. Fair assessment? Yep. That's why I give the nod, even though Wheeler has the 3 Angler of the Years, the astronomical amount of money is DC. Pete.
I feel like Wheeler gets penalized for being good in this conversation, gets penalized for being good at a lot of different things.
Absolutely, he does.
But I also wanted to make a point, and I don't know where this comes into the whole calculus. Wheeler obviously has had a lot of success with the Crush City lineup this year, as have some other guys on that team. And I think the fact that he developed a line of baits specifically around or largely around this technology, I don't know if that works in his favor, against him, or it's indifferent, but it's kind of a cool little wrinkle there.
Now, listen, I feel, even though I put DC there, it's really hard for me not to put Patrick Walters in the number 2 spot because of the pioneering. And you talk about, he was one of the first guys. I mean, Alton, how much did you win in heavy hitters on a jerkbait?
I've not won $0 on a jerkbait in heavy hitters.
Or were you on fork where you were catching them on the jerkbait?
I was actually cranking. I was shallow cranking with live.
Where were you jerkbaiting?
I don't know. I've never won a tournament on a jerkbait, actually.
You weren't jerkbaiting stumps?
No, I was cranking stumps.
Oh, cranking
that
stumps.
Tournament.
A lot of guys were throwing jerkbaits.
I don't know how I ended up with my own show. I'm sorry.
That one.
Get kicked out on that. Jeffries, I'd be fired immediately for that massive gaffe. But Patrick with the jerkbait, like, look at what he's done with that. Like, I feel like he was the first one where people were like, oh, they'll come and eat that. And it was like right when the live was coming along, and it was like mesmerizing what he was able to get fish to do with it. And that, am I wrong on that, Jody? I mean, were there guys, Pete, were there tournaments before Patrick that were won with a jerkbait and scope?
If there were, they kept it awfully quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not a massive thing now?
Yeah, it's huge.
Is a jerkbait a massive thing anymore?
The Classic was just one on it this year, Jody. You know what wasn't one on it? Alton Jr. did not win it on fork.
I did not.
So that's where I'm saying, like, I would have no problem giving it to Pete with Walters. But if we're just going based on votes for number 2, we have a Walters, a Wheeler, and 2 DCs.
Walters has probably won, maybe even while we're talking, an NPFL event, and I bet he was using Livescope.
Yes, he also has, I think, 3 or 4 NPFL events.
Yeah. Matt, I you're the boss of the show. I think you're going to have to call it.
No, we're voting for it. Is everyone sticking with their votes? Pete, you're sticking with Walters?
I'm sticking with Walters.
Jody, you're sticking with Wheeler?
I mean, you kind of talked me out of it, honestly. And actually, Drew Gill, I talked with Drew prior to this, and Drew said that Connell scopes more than Wheeler. So I will switch my vote and give us a decision here.
Who are you switching it to?
I'm going to switch it to Connell. That way you get a clear 3-1, and we continue to gang up on Pete.
I know. I'm feeling bad about this here. Okay, so Drew Gill, Dustin Connell. All right, number 3. I'll kick it off. I will go Patrick Walters, number 3.
Ditto for me.
I love it.
You're good on that too, Jody?
No arguments here.
Pete, you get your number 1, but it's number 3.
Okay.
So we have Drew Gill, Dustin Connell, and Patrick Walters as the big 3 right now, as the top 3 live scopers in professional bass fishing, forward-facing sonar users, regardless of what brand it is. What is Drew? Does Drew have multiple? You know?
He's rocking Garmin, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he might be like all Garmin now, like even on his console and stuff like that. Coming up, he was like Garmin, and then he had like a lot of Lowrance at the console too.
Okay.
I believe.
And then
I think he might be across the board.
Patrick Walters at number 3. All right, we haven't started with you, Alton. Give us your number 4 pick.
I'm going to go Jacob Wheeler.
Pete, your number 4 pick.
Yeah, Wheeler was my 2, so you can slide him to 4.
Okay. Jody.
I just tried to pick him for 3, so sure.
Number 4 is Jacob Wheeler. That would be that was not much discussion there. All right. Rounding out the top 5, Pete, who you got?
I'm just lost now. Tell me who my next ranking pick was from my original pick.
You had Patrick Walters, Jacob Wheeler, and Dustin Connell, 1, 2, 3. And then your next pick was Jason Christie. You sticking with that, or do you wanna go somewhere different based on the last hour and 9 minutes?
I'm gonna pass on this round and hear what other people have to say.
I don't think that's the way this works.
Okay, that doesn't work. I'm gonna here's the deal. It depends on your criteria. I'm gonna say Christie, and I don't think technically he's the best. I don't think he likes it the most. I don't think he's the most inclined to use it. But he went out there as someone who clearly doesn't love it and won a classic with it. So, I mean, I give that mad props.
And he also won St. Clair with it when we thought he was just snapping a tube, but he was actually using Livescope.
It's a toss-up between Scott Martin, Mike McClellan, or Jason Christie as to who was kind of the first to win a pure what they call it before it was Livescope? Panoptics tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I right there? Jody, Pete, Alton, and was there anyone before those 3? I think McClellan won a invitational or something on it. Who knows when Scott actually started using it, but he didn't tell anyone until everyone was like, hey, anyone noticed that Scott only casts where his trolling motor's pointed?
I think of those 3.
There was
Go ahead.
Oh, there was a Forestwood Cup at Ouachita, which I think was the one that Clint Davis won, although I'm not 100% sure on that. And Scott and Wheeler both had the Panoptix brick transducers, and were like chasing schoolers in the mornings, if I remember correctly.
And got beat by a big worm in a brush pile.
Yeah, old school, baby.
Those were the days.
So you're going with
imagine if they
Pete?
pointed those transducers at the brush piles. Gosh, they would have been unstoppable. Who knows?
You're going with Christie based on history,
Christie,
a classic win, a first win.
He has the major signature win, and chalk one up for the old guys. I don't know if he's 50, but he's close.
Okay. Jody.
I'm probably going to go Alton Jones Jr. on this one. I feel like he uses Livescope in some really innovative ways. I think he's really good with it shallow, which to me is like one of the more impressive and difficult to do things with it. And he's got some big wins with it.
You going with yourself, Alton?
I hate to do it, but that's where I was put myself on the list. Yes.
So I've been told that if you are not in the top 5, this is I can't repeat the word list. And that was by one of the guys that's already on the list. And then it was also by a dude who's not even on the list who goes, well, you know, who's obviously in the top 5. And I said, really? And he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, that guy's legit with it. Like Matt, like one of those dudes where you're like, yeah, you don't tangle with them when it's the deal. And then you also found some like little sneaky off the wall deals with it. Now I'm scared to like bring up anytime you've been scoping because I don't want to be wrong again. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'll put myself at risk. Were you doing some crazy off the wall, like some unique stuff with it at Santee Cooper?
Yeah, I was doing the same thing that Wheeler was. I just ran out of fish. He had a lot more spots than I did. And then like you follow, I was bed scoping and finished, you know. So, I mean, I feel like when I look at the list that I've made, you know, talk about bait, cover, bottom shallow, like I don't hold a candle to DC and Wheeler and Walters when it comes to like the bait nomadic fish. And I honestly don't hold a candle to Drew Gill when it comes to like super shallow, but I feel like edging towards that shallow stuff is definitely where I can separate myself now with so many guys being so good at the nomadic side of things.
I think it's 3-1, Pete, as we continue.
I feel like we're talking different criteria here. Like these guys are, not that they're taking it more seriously than I am, but they're doing like serious analysis of how people fish with it. And I'm giving more weight to the historical.
Yeah, that's why I brought you on, dude.
Okay, good.
Like you're adding
I feel like I have to explain myself.
No. You're adding exactly what I want you to the show.
Okay.
I definitely think that if there's a Livescope Hall of Fame, like Pete is building it right now.
We're definitely going to get there with Pete.
Who is going to top 10 tomorrow, then there's some folks building that list too.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fair.
So Alton Jones Jr. So our top 5 in the world based I mean, this is irrefutable. It's Drew Gill, number 1. What are you chuckling about down there in the corner?
Well, it's irrefutable except by Pete.
I know. We're like, thanks, Pete, but we're going to go in a different direction.
That's like my household, you know. What do you want to eat, Pete? Oh, I want Mexican. No. I want Chinese. No. I want hamburgers. No. Well, Hannah, you pick it. And then she'll say, no, I really want you to pick. That's what I feel like today.
I want this to be right. So even if Pete leaves here a broken man, so be it.
Wow.
We have Drew Gill, Dustin Connell, Patrick Walters, Jacob Wheeler, and Alton Jones Jr. I'll kick it off with number 6. He's on my list. He did not make a couple of your lists. He is definitely on Pete's list. And I got to say, Taku Ito at number 6. You want to talk about innovative baits, smallmouth, largemouth. He does not miss when he's not supposed to miss. He uses stuff that we won't even know what he's using for another 3 or 4 years from now. He maximizes his units. You have to understand how they work if you have 7 transducers. He was big in Japan, like he is the Livescope guru, the forward-facing guru. Like he does stuff and catches fish that I can't tell you how many guys on the Elite Series I've heard say, yeah, I knew those fish were in those treetops, but I couldn't catch them. And Taku goes over there and messes around, puts a little powder on something that looks like it came out of a pack of gummy bears, and he's fighting 5-pound spotted bass every cast. To me, that puts him at number 6. Jody.
I don't know Taku's game like maybe as well as I should, but I'm not opposed to it. Was he like minnowing a lot at that Hartwell Classic a couple years ago, or am I wrong
Pete,
about that?
you remember?
I don't think he fished the Hartwell Classic, did he?
Ooh, I would love for Jody to be wrong on a fact, so I'm off the hook.
On 2022.
I probably am.
2022.
That
Yeah, he finished 7th. He was
no, you're right. He finished 7th.
He was torching them on a minnow. So yeah, that's an early minnow appearance. I love that. I'm fine with that.
You good moving him up, Pete?
I am. And one more thing about him, at least on the bass side, there are guys, particularly guys in my age range, who when I see their name on caller ID, I shudder these days because I know I'm about to get a 45-minute diatribe about how much they hate the young scopers. And I've never heard anyone say anything bad about Taku. Like,
yeah, that's a valid.
To me, the intangible there is that he brings joy to the game, and he's kind of like a Japanese.
He's an ambassador. He's an ambassador to Livescope.
He's kind of like Aaron would have been. I feel like Aaron would have found a way to use it and would have been obsessed with it, and no one could have been mad at him. And I feel the same way about Taku. Like, there are very few guys in the sport that everyone likes, and he's one of them.
I agree. I feel like if Aaron was still around, there would have been a period where he had a fish dead to rights on Livescope, and he'd have been like, oh, man, like, I can tell that fish is just not having a good day. Like, it just, that does not look like a happy fish on Livescope. So I'm just going to go over here and catch a different one and just, like, let him kind of have his time. And maybe if he looks happier tomorrow, we'll take him for a boat ride. But I just don't want to add to his problems.
Bro.
There you go. Now, you're cool with that, Pete, even though,
yes.
So you're cool with Taku being ahead of Jason Christie.
Yeah, I like Taku a lot.
Okay, Alton.
I have a bone to pick with that one. I mean, I hate to say it, but
okay,
I'd put Dakota. I mean, I wouldn't mind putting him above me, but I've got him in number 6 on this list. The dude is so consistent. He never misses. And if it wasn't for a motor blowing up, he'd be reigning angler of the year last year on our tour at the BPT. He's competing for AOY on the Opens and I think the Opens is one of the easiest places to stumble just because there's so many variables of other competitors and things like that. Dakota is just one of those anglers that I straight up fear. From a tournament aspect, he's an incredible live scoper, wickedly consistent. Now, if y'all want to outvote me on that one, I'm totally open to it.
Well, no, I would 100% agree, but here's where I think Dakota falls below Taku. And Pete, Taku has how many wins?
He has the win at Smith. He has the win at the St. Lawrence.
I think if he's got 2 Elite Series wins then.
On 2
Whereas
species.
On 2 different species, he's got the versatility of the baits. Dakota's working with a Toyota Series win and an Invitational win.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think I would give the edge to Taku there.
That's fine. Let's a vote.
You're good. You're okay with that. Plus, if we're going to go on the novel baits and lures,
yeah,
he
Taku's
wins that.
Yeah.
And
I love Taku, one of my favorite anglers to watch, but the only bone I have to pick is the consistency aspect.
That's valid.
The only bone I have to pick. And I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, but when I make my list, I try to make a list of dudes that never miss.
Do we know how Taku is at like the shallow aspect of Livescope? Because I legit don't really feel like I know the answer to that, but I know that Dakota can do that stuff. Like Dakota can scope a fish on a bed.
Pete, do we know what Taku's efficiency is in dirty water, shallower water, stuff that's not smallmouth powder.
I mean, he doesn't have a signature finish in Florida. He has a second place in an open at Toledo Bend. He came in third at an elite at the Sabine, and I don't know if he was scoping in those cases, but clearly he has good finishes in those fisheries.
Oh, maybe he was scoping in that one. If he was, I would be much more comfortable.
I would say there was a good chance he is, just knowing what I know about the JDM culture and all those guys and how they fish. I would say there's a really good chance he was scoping in some
Hold
capacity.
on, I'm trying to find this. There it is, Sabine River. Let me see if there's a.
I think he was scoping. I think he's right there by the
Wasn't
ramp.
he fishing like bridges and like barges and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's a big pier just upriver from Takeoff, and I think he caught a bunch of big ones off it. I'm pretty sure he was scoping them.
I'm seeing frogs. Everyone's seeing. I'm in the top bait, so it's going to come here, and we're going to know right off the hopper what he was doing.
Oh, and those are always true.
Oh, dude.
He had a spinning rod. I remember.
Here we go. Look at this.
It's going to be some sort of weird Nico rig or wacky rig or something like that.
There it is right there. Look at that thing.
I don't have one of those in my tackle box.
Oh, he's also got a spinner bait and a minnow.
And it was the Sakamata shad.
Oh, that was a Sakamata shad before they were $75 a bag.
Back
when you could actually get them.
No.
Yeah.
I'm good if y'all want to lock that in there.
And then do we stipulate to Dakota coming in next, or is there a dispute about that?
Hold on. Let's not put the horse ahead of the. Well, actually, we do want to put the horse ahead of the cart. Let's not put the cart ahead of the horse here. I got to get my list back up. We're good with Taku at 6. And
I'm good with it. I agree. Dakota is a definite top 10 guy on.
No, I'm 100% on that too. I think Dakota's got to be number 7 if Taku's is 6. You good with that, Alton?
Yep.
Okay. So we're at Drew Gill, Dustin Connell, Patrick Walters, Jacob Wheeler, Alton Jones Jr., Taku E2, and Dakota Ebear. Who's next? Let me see. Who do I have on here that we're not on there? Dude, I will go Jason Christie at 8. I think we need a in the top 10 an old school guy. And I mean, I might be a little bit biased because he's from Oklahoma, but he's the last guy that I would think of being incredibly proficient with it. And like I said, he's been on that train since 2018. He has a Bassmaster Classic win with it. He uses it with crankbaits. He's used it to win multiple events. I have no problem putting Christie at 8 as someone that I don't think a lot of people would have thought would make the top 10 list. But that's who I've got at 8. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't end up at 8. It's just, let's go to Alton.
Dude, you're gonna make me talk bad about this guy that you're talking about right here is my fishing man crush. Like when I was with Pradco, dude, I still do look up to Jason so much, but I look up to him for his shallow water prowess, how good he is with the spinner bait, just breaking down cover. He doesn't make my top 10. I mean,
Okay.
I just straight up say that. And I look at the show that we're trying to film is, now this is your show, but it's top 10 scopers in the game right now.
Yep.
He's not now you talk about top 10 spinner baiters in the game, and it'd be hard not to put him at number 1. But I struggle for him to find my list. You know?
Okay. So who do you have in the number 8 spot?
It's hard for me to not put Spencer Sheffield right there.
Okay. Pete?
I had Christie up high, but the more I think about this is we are filming this right before the St. Lawrence tournament. By the time this is live, Hamner may have won Angler of the Year and the Classic in the same year.
When I said the Classic, I thought, you know what? I should have said Hamner instead of Christie because I
thought the same thing.
I mean, if he does that, it's 2 major titles scoping.
Jody?
I feel like this is like right about the right place to put Sheffield. I think it's also probably right about the right place to put Hamner. I think if I have a live scope only tournament tomorrow, I think those guys are going to beat Christie. I think that he's like, it's amazing what he's done with it, but I do agree that for this list, like, there's other directions.
If we're making a Pioneers list.
Like,
I
me,
don't
the
see how
Pioneer stuff
you. Yeah, go ahead.
is like bonus points. That's like a little sprinkle for guys.
And the
that's
more
like the
we've talked
icebreaker,
about
but
it, I mean, that's kind of. So here's the deal, and I don't see how this is debatable. I don't know how you can put as Justin Hamner has a classic win. Like, to me, if it's a tie, that's a tiebreaker. To me, to put Spencer ahead of Hamner, Spencer would have to be significantly better with it and have a significantly better resume.
I'm good with that.
You good with that, Pete? I've spent time on the water with Hamner, and he's able to make fish do things to. He's able to make fish react to the bait when the bait is further away from the fish. Does that make sense? Than anyone else I've been in the boat with live scope. He's able to do things with a swim bait or a jerk bait to get a fish that's 10, 15, 20 feet down away, not exactly in the cone, to visibly be looking at the screen, and he does something, and that fish goes, I want it. Whereas, a mere mortal such as myself would be like, oh, next cast.
I like Hamner at that spot.
Justin Hamner. All right, number 9. Whose turn? Alton, number 9.
I'm gonna stick to my guns with Spencer there.
Okay. Jody, you're a MLF guy.
I'm really good with Spencer there.
Okay.
I almost want to know though, like, is Scott Martin in your top 10 or
he's
not?
In my top 10?
Because I feel like
he's not in my top 10.
I can see the argument like both ways. I feel like he should get a lot of credit for being a pioneer. Seems like he's got the bed fishing thing like on lockdown, but also, I mean, man, he's really struggled in some great live scope tournaments this year.
Right. And I think you got to be able to do it all, in my opinion. But he's definitely, dude. I mean, I had never seen anyone bed scope. I mean, watching him, what he did on Santee is why I was able to do it at Eufaula,
Okay, I also want to bring this in as we go to number 9. A lot of you guys had the Johnston brothers in your top 10, and we're at number 9, and there's not a Johnston on the list yet.
I feel like they're going to get knocked out because they're going to cannibalize each other's votes. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, their parents really did them a disservice by giving them very similar first names that start with the same letter. It's just, and the fact that they share their money and they share their information.
What do you want it to be, like Chris and Augustus?
Yeah, Otis and something else. Like, it feels like, and I've worked with them a lot, but sometimes I'm like, I have to remember which one's Corey and which one's Chris, just because they're distinguishable when you see them. But they do so much in such similar ways and have so many great achievements, both of them, that it's hard for me to pick one over the other. I would like them to be like maybe 10A and 10B.
And I don't know either of them personally as far as like their scoping tendencies.
Yeah, that's me. I don't have enough experience around them, I guess, to
I will say this. We are going to have 2 honorable mentions after this. So if we want to do this weird Chris and Corey thing,
I just know I spoke to several Elite Series pros who were fishing around them at St. Clair a couple years back.
Yeah.
And they said it was embarrassing how much they outfished us, basically doing the same thing on the same fish. And like, to me, when you're going against, I mean, you've known it, Alton, when you've gone to a place like Okeechobee and you're sitting in the monkey box and there's someone who's catching more fish than everyone else doing, they're doing exactly the same things. Sometimes there's just that little extra juice to someone.
Right.
All right. So now we've got we're working with. I have no idea where we are.
9, I think.
We're at number 9.
Yeah, we're
and
still on
Alton's
9.
saying-
We're off the
Alton's
rails.
saying- I know. Alton's saying Spencer Sheffield. That's your pick, number 9.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sticking with that.
Who's your pick, Pete? Number 9.
I'll defer to them.
Okay, Jody. Who's your
I'm pretty
9
good with
pick?
Sheffield, man. I've watched him fish a lot. He's incredible at it.
I will defer to you guys there. You guys seem pretty confident on that. I'm not well versed enough to know, but I trust you guys.
What's our breakdown now? Elite versus BPT versus none of the above.
Drew Gill, BPT, Connell, BPT, Walters, Elite Series, Wheeler and Alton, BPT, Taku E2, Elite Series, eBear, Opens and Invitationals, or just Opens?
I just call them opens.
Opens.
Now.
The Hamner Elite Series. So if you want to do bass guys in the top 8, we have 1, and this just says worked out like this.
4, 4, and 1.
We have Hamner, eBear, E2, and Walters, and then we have Gil, Connell, Wheeler, and Jones.
That's pretty amazing.
One of the names that we've skipped over that should be higher on my list is Michael Neal. I can't see a top 10 without Michael Neal in it.
Yeah, and he just won. There's not a recency bias. He's almost won a cup doing it.
Michael Neal is incredibly good at it. He's super committed to it too. And there's some times where he does put it down and he'll still catch them shallow, which maybe is a mark against him, but he's really good. He won with it with active target at Rayburn. He won an invitational or a pro circuit or whatever we called it then. He's really good. But he might be kind of one of those guys who's a little too all around. Like he's just too good at fishing, you know?
Yeah.
I'm also looking at other names that are on multiple lists that are not represented, and Cody Huff has not been. I mean, we got 3 spots left for the top 10. Cody Huff has not been discussed yet either.
Wait, I thought we had 2 because didn't we put
we have
at 8?
2. Yeah. Hamner's number 8. So we have 2 spots.
Wait, we didn't fill in Spencer at 9?
Are we good?
I don't remember if we did or not.
Maybe we did, but gosh, it feels brutal to leave Huff off of one. And
That's
it also
what I'm
feels
saying.
brutal
So
to
here's
leave
what
Neal
we do.
off of it.
We have two spots. Let's make a list. Are we good with this? You guys good? I'm not getting bored with it. Are you?
I'm good.
No.
I'm a little stressed out. I'm not going to lie. We have Cody Huff, Spencer Sheffield, Chris and Corey Johnson, and who else do we have on here that needs to be Michael Neal.
There was also someone brought up JT Tompkins, and I had kind of categorically sworn off rookies, but given his Opens championship and where he stands right now, I don't know if he needs to be back in the conversation.
I think there's a lot more wins between these 5 guys that we have on here that are battling for 2 spots that JT Tompkins doesn't have yet. Major wins.
We'll get him on next year's list.
Yeah, but fair.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm fine. I really feel like Drew Gill is like the exception that proves the rule. That maybe it's fine to wait a little bit on rookies. I don't know if that's.
Can we knock out Palmer, Nania, Wagner, Williams, Milliken, Bakewell, Colby Miller, and Paul Marks at this time for those final 2 spots?
I think so.
Yep.
Okay. Other people that we have on the list, Alton, you had Trey McKinney on there.
Yeah, I think you can. I think I actually had JT ahead of him. So if we're going to nix JT.
Okay, so we could nix both of those. Pete, you also had you had Shakuret and Huff. Huff is already down there on that list, but you also had Shakuret. First one to break 100 pounds, did it strictly on scoping, just won an open with 75 pounds.
The only thing it takes away from him in my mind is that all the major successes have been with smallmouths. And I realize that's that's picking nits at this point, but
we're picking nits.
I still feel like, go ahead.
Oh, didn't he make a top 10 at lay scoping last year? Like on bait, or am I totally thinking of the wrong?
You're right. I think you're right. That was when midge trolling was still a little taboo.
Mm.
Yeah. Very secret.
I'm trying to think. And I had Alec Morrison on the list. He just has a Angler of the Year and a win. Does he have a win yet? Or not?
He at one time he had a no, he won the Toyota at Rayburn, and it was the
by like 28 pounds
at the time. Yeah. Yep.
Is he? And he just won the Angler of the Year. I think I might have a little recency bias there of just having him on the show, like where I'm like, my God, this guy's good. Or am I off base on that?
He is incredibly good. It is very difficult for me to put him above Michael Neal.
Okay, then he's out.
Oh,
so number 9. We good with Spencer Sheffield, the Johnson brothers, Spencer Sheffield, Cody Huff, or Michael Neal.
What if we all agree on one to cull from that list?
Okay.
I don't know who that's going to be. I want one of y'all to take it, but I think we can all agree on a name to whittle it down a little bit because it's so hard. All those guys deserve a shot at it.
I hate taking a Johnston brother off, but I feel like they kind of cannibalize votes from each other, and maybe you take them both off for that reason.
I got no problem taking Cody Huff off. He doesn't have a tour win in his career.
That was going to be my selection if I was going to vote somebody off. But man, he's incredible Livescoper.
Wins and stuff are part of the process, but also what he's done with the jigging spoon and what he's done with non-traditional ways to use it and stuff makes it really hard. But like, he doesn't have a tour level win yet.
Yeah.
I think a tour level win puts him potentially in the top 5.
Do we have any guys on our list who don't have a tour level win?
What does Spencer won?
Spencer won like the Pro Circuit Championship. Yeah, the title.
Yeah.
Okay.
He won that at the St. Lawrence, scoping, throwing a drop shot.
I would give Michael Neal a nod over Spencer personally. I think
I am very comfortable putting Michael Neal ahead of Spencer.
Yeah, I might go Neal and then Huff and give Huff some real credit for, for kind of starting the craze a little bit, for being like, he was in college when he started using this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he was
I'm game with that.
good,
that was on
young.
my list. Pete, he was number 5 on your list.
And I say that like Spencer was the guy who convinced me to buy Livescope and changed my life because of it.
Oh.
Like, I don't love arguing against him, but I do feel like Huff's done some remarkable things with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's where
like
we are.
At this point, all these guys have an argument. You can make an argument for top 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I am good if we are talking about guys that pioneered and are still competing at a very high level. I mean, that's to me is a little bit of a sway towards Cody if we're talking.
I'm good with it. I think we got our top 10, and then on our honorable mention list, I think you put both of the Johnsons, Spencer Sheffield, both of the Johnsons and Spencer Sheffield.
Every Elite Series rookie.
And every Elite Series rookie. Or do we not even leave an honorable mention and just say, sorry, you didn't make the list?
It's your list.
Yeah, screw honorable mentions. We just got a top 10. You either made it or you didn't. This is it. We ready? Drew Gill, number 1. Dustin Connell, number 2. Patrick Walters, number 3. Jacob Wheeler, number 4. Alton Jones Jr., number 5. Taku Itu, number 6. Dakota Ebear, number 7. Justin Hamner, number 8. Michael Neal, number 10. or number 9, and Cody Huff, number 10.
I'm good with it.
I like it.
It's a pretty good list.
Gentlemen, this was not an easy task, but y'all rose to the occasion.
I just can't wait to see the bickering back and forth on social media when you post this list.
There's a lot of people who won't watch this show, but will comment on it.
Wait, people complain on social media?
Not about Livescope. They never complain about that.
What is the okay? So I do need your help with one more thing. The title of this list, because I don't want to use scopers. I'm tired of FFS or forward facing sonar. What do we call this list?
Blockett's BFFs.
That's pretty good. I was going to say top 10 nerds in the game. Top 10 gamers in bass fishing.
The top 10 gamers in bass fishing is pretty fun.
Alton, what does your dad think of this whole deal? Like,
he's more committed than I am to Livescope, actually. Like, he definitely has his own spin on it. He's not great at chasing nomadic fish, but he grew up like in Central Texas, triangulating brush piles, fishing offshore was a big thing. And he's kind of just adapted that and fishing cover with it that he would have always fished, but fishing it way more efficiently. But it's weird, like at different places. Like a lot of times, like we go to the Chowan River, I start way up the Roanoke, flipping and frogging and doing all that. He starts scoping and he stays scoping. And I mean, that tells you it doesn't always pay off. He struggled a little bit this year, but he's fully embraced it.
It's fascinating. I'm sure it changed the dynamic where it went, I would assume, where it went from him being your mentor to a more equal playing field between the two of you. I mean, that was going to happen anyway as you matured, but I have to assume that was partially the case in your relationship.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely, we feed off of each other, and there's definitely things I can help him on and things he can help me on. So it's nice to be able to return the favor. He's taught me a lot over the years.
I'm looking at it. I like it. Gill, Connell, Walters, Wheeler, Jones, Ito, Eber, Hamner, Neal, Huff. I don't think there's any glaring emissions. I think there's a healthy discussion on the bottom half. I like our panel of experts. You all brought something different to the table. Are you guys happy with it? Standing behind that?
With it.
Yeah,
I stick with it.
All right.
I feel great about the top 5, and I think there's discussions the rest of the way, but that's a list, you know?
If you feel good about it, Pete, I'm going to just fade the music in.
Fade it.
Because, I mean, our job is done. We'll post this. We'll wait for the, if you like it, if you disagree with it, if there's someone that we left off of the list, if there's a criteria that we didn't include, by all means, comment, let us know how we got it wrong or how we got it right. And I kind of like these. Maybe I need to do a different panel to do the top flippers and what's going on now, top complainers in the game today.
That would be a fun one.
The top 10 angriest pros in professional bass fishing.
You should do that show and release it as a companion to this one.
The angriest pros.
Be a lot of the same talking points. A lot of the same talking points.
Guys, I appreciate it. This was an hour and 45 minutes. I know that, Al, you're at the conclusion of an incredibly busy day. You've been on the road. Jody, you're currently on the road. And Pete, you've been on the road a lot, and you have a full-time job where you make the big bucks. So thank you for taking time out. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate the input. And that's all we got. So this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Stay tuned to BassZone.com for the upcoming schedule. See ya.
Thanks, guys.